How are you doing, sir?
Life is good.
When you're Ken Clinton of Intrepid Powerboats on November 8th, 2021, life is very good.
That's what I'm talking about. Just got back from the boat show and we did very well.
That was obviously one of the first things I wanted to talk about. Of course, first and foremost, pleasure to hear your voice, pleasure to speak with you. Obviously, we're trading emails all the time, which I do appreciate. But thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busier than ever in all good ways. I mean, not only the boat show in Fort Lauderdale, again, we'll jump into that in a second, but then also, of course, the amazing recent occurrence with respect to elevating and taking Intrepid to the next level with the deal with MarineMax, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, it was something that, had been in the works for a while and it just seemed like all the stars lined up for where it made sense for us to do this. They came to us and they basically said, look, we don't want to change anything that you do. If anything, we just want to provide you with some capital to be able to take it to the next level. And we don't want to change you. And we want a company that we don't have to fix because we're not boat builders and we couldn't fix you even if we wanted to. We just want somebody that already knows what they're doing and can, just use a capital injection. And, that they seem like really nice guys, really down to earth, straight shooters. And, met with Brett McGill, Bill McGill, Mike McLam, Chuck Cashman, all the guys from MarineMax. And they couldn't say enough about the brand. And the more I get to know them, I feel it's mutual.
Congratulations, and another of the many, but quite a testament and compliment to what it is that you have done for years, day in and day out, with that furious passion that and love for what you do, and doing it and always pushing yourself to do it better and better. So I really don't think that there is a higher test, again, to use the word again, testament and compliment to what you do. And so again, congrats, man. That's amazing.
Thanks, man. And I got to tell you that you're only as good as the people that you're around. And I'm
Yep.
surrounded by the best team in the industry. And, they make me look good for sure.
Well, as do, and of course, the Intrepid Nation. Without the Intrepid Nation and their consistent input and feedback and dedication to the brand and giving you those amazing ideas that then lend to the creation of each and every new amazing Intrepid model. So really, it's the whole package.
Preach, Judd.
I know.
I like
I'd be preaching even more if my Intrepid Nation flag was flying high here. But like I said, I gave it to a friend of a friend who turned out to be just this diehard Intrepid Powerboats fan, and so the giving this person the that magnificent, and so thrilled and humbled and honored that you love that cover issue. I think it's just absolutely beautiful. So kudos on the image that you chose, but just a work of art. And then with that flag, that flag meant the world to him. So thank you for that. But I do want a replacement.
understood. I got you, Judd.
Thank you. Now let's talk about what I'm imagining is one of the most exciting boat shows of the boat shows you do every year, which are, as we've discussed, just absolutely tantamount to a certain extent with respect to how you utilize them to engage with current and potential new Intrepid customers. This boat show, of course, and for the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, was that much more significant for the obvious coming out of COVID and the diehard period of the pandemic. So, I mean, what was it like in general, really quick? And then, I mean, the excitement, the feeling, but then also for obviously the most importantly, Intrepid Powerboats. What was this one like versus any other show in the past?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us, because we don't have a dealership network, it's the only chance you really get to go see all our models in one place. So it's important for us to show up and bring everything to that show. And look, it cost me over $300,000 just to be there.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. That's crazy.
It's a big investment.
Yeah.
So, to be able to go there, have all the models, and be able to meet with everybody. For me, it's just a gold mine of data for me to come up with the next new designs that I'm going to do with my team. And the Intrepid Nation always shows up and doesn't disappoint. The other hard thing for us is, we went in with $110 million backlog, and that's hard, and then when you go to sell boats, but then we left with $122 million backlog. So
Wow.
Amazing show, amazing people.
Absolutely incredible. And so you said you went in with 110, you left with 100 and what?
22.
122. All right, so you did 12. How does that compare to previous shows with respect to what you've done at a show?
That's actually about average. I expected to be less just because of the backlog. Normally our backlog is not as high as 110 million going into a show, and sometimes that's a turnoff for people having to wait a year and a half for a boat. But and I guess for us, we're blessed enough to have people that understand that it's worth the wait.
Well, right, exactly. It's an Intrepid and it's bespoke and there's nothing else like it on the planet. So yes, it's worth the wait. And then also right now that's indicative of the yacht boat industry right now is that no other period in time for any, let's just say, yacht on the market have there been 9 to 10 qualified buyers ready to pull the trigger. And the inventory is low. It's almost like a luxury real estate situation to a certain extent. And so I think that probably, or I would imagine, that's permeating with respect to people just knowing that there's a wait right now. And if you want the best, there's perhaps even a little bit more of a wait. Intrepid being the best, sure, it's going to take a few extra minutes, but in the grand scheme of things, that it's not that big of a deal. It's well worth it. And just curious now, with respect to the backlog, in terms you've now qualified it in terms of monetary terms. What does that mean in months for someone that let's say I'm buying my first Intrepid or my fifth Intrepid, like many people in the Intrepid Nation? What's the time frame on that?
It really depends on the model because we run different models on different lines. So I think if it's a smaller to mid-sized boat, it's probably 14 months. If it's a larger boat, it's closer to 2 years. So that's really the span in between the smallest and the largest models as far as weight is concerned.
Okay. And what else with respect to this Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show? What was the atmosphere like versus previous shows? Just again, in that it was this huge show significantly, after the dire periods of the pandemic.
Well, I think for us, it was a couple different things. One, it was the debut of the 427 at its first boat show, which hadn't happened yet, so that was a big deal for us with it being a new model.
Right.
And then the other big talk of the town was the acquisition in partnership with MarineMax, and being able to there was lots of congratulatory people that were coming up to me, but there was also some concern, and what I had to explain is, they're not going to change us. They're not going to involve themselves in our business, and you're not going to be able to buy Intrepids at MarineMax dealerships, and the sales model stays the same because though we talk about the backlog being out as far as it is, that also protects the resale value on the used market. If Mr. John Smith has a boat that he's going to put up on the market, an Intrepid, I should say, and there's a year and a half wait, he's going to get top dollar for a boat that he can get now. So when he does sell that, he's not going to go to any other brand. He's going to come back to us. And 65% of my production schedule is repeat buyers. So making sure that we protect the resale for everybody in the Intrepid Nation is key, and that backlog really does it. So
right.
The boat show was great. The boat show was fantastic. The people are spending money. I think the thing that people are starting to get used to, which is a shame because it seems to be with everything, but there's a wait for everything. When you start talking about supply chain issues and what it's like to go buy a car even right now, it is tough. There's just not a lot of product out there. So I think even though we had huge pushback in the show last year, even, from people having to wait, people are starting to grow accustomed to it because, even though they get frustrated in the beginning, you start explaining it and they go, I know. It's the same thing with cars and houses and everything else. And it's a little easier for them to digest.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so with respect to this show, and so I just realized we haven't been able to have a conversation since July 30th. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, 3-4 months go by. What new inspirations have you, Ken, gotten from the Intrepid Nation, or perhaps elsewhere, but it tends to come from the Intrepid Nation, that have thus lent to you now working on the next one or two or three exciting models?
Sure. I think that the one that's the most pressing right now that I'm in the middle of is the new 427 is an FE, which is a front entry to the console. And we've been inspired to do a second row of seating behind the helm. And the only way to get that room in the aft cockpit is to reconfigure that boat. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking the very large front sun lounge that's separated from the console in the front of that boat, and I'm removing it, and I'm shifting the console forward and doing a side entry console. And then that gives me enough room in the aft cockpit to do two rows. So right now I have a 427 FE. I'm working on a 427 SE to give the Intrepid Nation that second row of helm seating. And then after that, I'm working on a larger center console above 47 feet.
And then with those new creations, those new amazing creations, those still get into the backlog, I imagine. And question for you with respect to, and this there it's within the same realm with respect to the MarineMax, and you touched upon one of the most beneficial elements was an infusion of capital, so to speak. And so, is that going to allow? Are you going to utilize that, if you don't mind me asking, to be able to expand your ability to basically develop more or faster, or and thus would the backlog decrease?
Yeah, I think not so much. I'm not looking to build more product. I think if anything, I'm looking to innovate more. And and part of the innovation process is to be able to cut 5-axis tooling. And when I can handle a lot of that in house, some of the smaller stuff, but the larger stuff, I have to go out to outside companies, and they're booked, and they're booked out far, which really slows down our growth of innovation, which is what we're known for. So what I'm looking to do is take an injection of capital, buy some land next door to me, build a big building, buy our own 5-axis, a large 5-axis, something that I can cut up to 50-foot or even more size hulls from a tooling process, and be able to innovate at our own speed versus being dictated by outside companies. And because I kind of feel like I'm being hindered right now with our creative process, and that just doesn't work for me. So having that injection of capital is going to allow us to buy some land, build a big building, get a big 5-axis machine, and all those things are millions and millions of dollars. And having that injection is really going to help us do that.
Right. Very. Thank you for answering that so well. That was the question I was trying to ask, but did not. So thank you for finding. Thank you for finding my question in what I said.
I speak Judd.
Thank you very much. And that's really exciting. I mean, that's something that you've never been able to even contemplate, right?
No, it's funny. I've been here 31 years.
31 years. What a ride.
Yeah, and I've been through 4 or 5 of these transitions now throughout those years, and I have yet to have a single ownership group come in and give me a single dollar to make the place any better. Everything that I've done has been self-generated CapEx dollars.
Yep.
So this is the very first time that somebody came in and said, not only do we, want to become partners with you, but, we actually want to help you with capital so you can take it to the next level. So I'm not doing it on my own this time.
Right. And, and you mentioned this near the beginning of our conversation. You paid a very high compliment to MarineMax and those individuals that you touched upon. And anything that I've seen them do over the past 6 to 8 months, year, give or take, it always seems to be really smart. And they seem to have done some really great things. And then over the past, again, 6, 8, 12 months, and then when I saw your name across my bow and with MarineMax, it really didn't surprise me because of the moves they've made. And it just I was wondering when I did send you the email saying congratulations, if it was going to bounce back and say Ken is now down in the Caribbean and won't be back ever. But
No way, man. I love it here. And I'll tell
I
you
know
that,
you do.
you know, meeting all the team from MarineMax and getting to know them, really, really not only nice people, good people, but smart people, like you said. And, they're a publicly traded company. So it's really easy to see if their decision making is good or not. I mean,
Right.
I think this past year they made over $2 billion as a public company. So that's not something that comes easy.
No, not at all. And going back to, because it's always, or often, for the most part, it's a great story. You said the inspiration for the new FE front entry that you're doing. Where did that inspiration come from? Within, I'm guessing, the Intrepid Nation.
Yeah, that was actually from an individual at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show last year for the FE. I mean, the FE was something that we spoke about on the floor of the boat show, and by the following boat show, I had it debuted. And the SE is basically not just a single individual, but a group of people, making the same request. Is there any way to get 2 rows of helm seating? And I just sat there and stared at the boat for most of the show in between talking to people, trying to figure out how I was going to do it. And then it kind of came clear when I realized that if I got rid of that forward lounger and shifted everything forward and made a side entry, I could make the math and the geometry work.
That's, isn't it incredible when you've created something such as each and every one of your incredible Intrepid creations, but then you just sit there and you stare at it a little longer. And if someone hadn't said just maybe, one or two words, you may have never seen it, but then all of a sudden it becomes clear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's, like I said before, that's the best part of a boat show. That's where I really mine for data and be able to take that input, that, the conversations with all the different customers and what's important to them and what's not important, and what they like to see in the future. Then it's up to us to figure out how to do it. And I grab the ideas and I come back here and I sit with my team and I tell them what I'm thinking, and they come back with what they're thinking, and together we make the right decisions to create the next model.
Right, you're artists. You're some of the greatest artists on the planet. And with respect to Ken, the 65% that is approximately from the Intrepid Nation in the backlog. So the other 35% is that. Are you seeing that now with respect to how amazing your industry is doing? Are you seeing a lot of first time buyers? Are you seeing a lot of referrals? How have the dynamics of that changed just with the industry, again, the industry being as hot, not to use that cliche term, but as hot as it is right now, as strong as it is?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's referrals. I think for us, it takes John Smith taking his buddy out on his Intrepid, and getting an experience unlike what he has on his own particular model boat. I think I heard that story more than ever any other story. I own a boat and it's brand X, and I loved it until I went on an Intrepid, and then I went on your boat because my buddy had one, and now I gotta have one, and that seemed to be the real theme of the last show for sure.
And what is the next show coming up for you?
Miami. So Miami will be in February. That's the other big one. And for us, it's a really cool show because it's going back to the convention center on South Beach. Back in 2015, the convention center decided they were no longer going to hold boat shows there anymore. And we had to go out to Virginia Key, which was, different. It was nice because it was on the water, but logistically it was really hard to get in and out of that show. And we had some pushback on it.
That was the one up by Fontaine Blue up in that area, right?
Correct. And what happened was when they removed us from the convention center, they said that I'll never forget, we were having a meeting and the residents of South Beach said, look, we don't want you guys in our convention center anymore because the traffic and everything else, and our hotels are full regardless of if you guys are down here, because we were trying to show the economic impact of the show.
Right.
So when we moved, and a few years goes by, and all of a sudden there's a pandemic, and then I think they had a change of heart, because I think that the hotels may not have been as full as they used to be.
Yep.
And, and honestly, we loved it at the convention center. It was great being inside. It's air conditioned. You don't have to worry about weather conditions. South Beach is beautiful. The beaches, the hotels. It's a home run.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a home run all the way around for everybody. So we're real excited for them to invite us back, and we're gonna go in there guns blazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. And that convention center is it's an amazing convention center. And the location there is so just South Beach, Miami Beach, rock and roll. That other location, I attended the show there. But when you're down in the convention center, you're in the heart of South Beach. And that changes the whole dynamic. And I would imagine that definitely lends to changing the decision of many people to, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to go simply because it's in that location. That is the heart of Miami Beach and South Beach, one of the greatest cities on the planet.
Yeah, it's great. And, I think the biggest thing that we always saw in the convention center too is, people didn't mind hanging out, they don't mind staying there because it's not hot and it's not raining and it's not, you don't have any of those issues to deal with, and people can just relax and have a good time. And it's always a home run in the convention center.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. So you'll be gearing up for that one. And then, so now, being the middle of November, for the sake of conversation, what is this period like for you, getting close to the end of 2021, getting ready for 2022, along with the backlog, et cetera? What else do you do at this time of the year, Ken?
Yeah, basically, it's just a continuation. We know we got year end coming up, but it's continuing to concentrate on not only the new models that were coming up and what we're trying to debut in the future, but also just keeping an eye on supply chain issues, labor. It's been a different ball game for the last couple of years with the pandemic, and we spend probably more time now with supply chain issues than anything else with the business, just making sure we get the right product at the right time.
And I remember, I think it's worth bringing up again because it lends to the genius of you and Intrepid, is there was something that we discussed in July that you had done so as to I'm saying not 100%, but to a certain extent mitigate the problems with the supply chain potential issues that you saw coming.
Yeah, there was a few different things. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned from the pandemic is that old saying about, not having all your eggs in one basket. And we did for the longest time. And, I think what we learned what to do was diversify, and you have to do that, but you have to do that without compromising quality. So that was the biggest thing, is making sure that we could find other partners that could create product just as high quality as what we're accustomed to. And though that was a lot of work, we really had some payoff. And I think the other part of that was just having some real grown-up decisions with other vendors and saying, look, I understand that there's limited capabilities because of the materials that you're being dealt with as well. But, you really need to look at who's a consistent, good customer to you, and that's us. And, I think making that extra effort to make sure that we stay in business by supplying us with what we need behooves both parties. And that was something that we had to do with, many different vendors. And it all comes down to relationships. We pay our bills early. Nobody ever asks us to make a payment on anything. We're good customers. So vendors like doing business with good customers.
And good people, just like everyone that you work with and everyone in the Intrepid Nation. Good people.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
Goes a long way. One of the things I love most about Dwayne Johnson being basically the biggest movie star on the planet, whatever, is he always sticks to this core saying or philosophy that is just be kind to people. And that really is, it's so true. If you hold that true in anything and everything that you do. Now, I will let you get going shortly, my friend. I know how busy you are. What is it that you're most excited about going into 2022? And also, to preface that, with respect to what a remarkable moment, Ken. I mean, a year and a half ago, you had this moment of, oh my industry may literally, who knows what's going to happen, right? Everything stops. And then fast forward 18 months, 18 30-day periods, and you have one of the most fantastic partners now on the planet with MarineMax. You have a $122 million backlog. So when you take a step back and you reflect on this very significant moment in time as you head into 2022, how do you feel, and what's your optimistic, incredible outlook for 2022? And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I think, looking at 2022, first and foremost will be with our new partners. We're excited about this new relationship. We're literally just weeks into it, and we're going to see where it takes us. They're a great group. They're going to allow us to do what we do and without interference, allow us to run the business the way that it's always been run. And just looking at what that capital injection, what that means to us and how we use it the right way, because the other part of it is they made an investment, a large investment with our company. And at the same time, for them to invest capital, we have to make sure that we show them that we do the right thing with it. So that's probably the biggest thing looking into 2022 is to ensure that we use the money the right way, responsibly, to be able to grow the innovation of our company. And that's a tall task, but it's one we're excited about and looking forward to do.
It's a challenge, right? It's an additional challenge to innovate and inspire and grow and elevate, right?
Yeah, there's something about being an artist and somebody giving you, fresh canvas and fresh paint and fresh paint brushes and saying, have at it, So we're all really excited.
I can hear it in your voice. I can. So I'm so thrilled for you. And Ken, thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have, or that we didn't touch upon within this way too quick 30 minutes that we had?
No, actually, biggest thing was making sure that everybody knows how thankful we are for them coming out to the boat show, their continued support, with being in the Intrepid Nation, and getting everybody stoked and fired up for Miami Boat Show at the Convention Center in February. So we're ready to rock.
Ken Clinton, Intrepid Powerboats, intrepidpowerboats.com. One of a kind, one at a time. Thank you, as always, for your time, my friend. I can't express to you how much I appreciate it, and as well as knowing you and working with you, and also being inspired by you every day. So thank you for kicking ass, my friend.
No, thanks, Judd. We appreciate the fact that you have your interest in Intrepid and what we do here, brother.